Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Odette Suter here. Thank you so much for joining me today. Still kind of in shock almost that this is working today on my computer, it seems like. So if you guys could just maybe hit a quick little comment if you can hear me and see me, that would be awesome. But hi, everyone. It's really amazing to be here. I see there is one person that joined so far, so I'm going to give everyone a little time to find this and yeah, start joining. I am also going to try to share this. See if that works. Let me see. Modern technology, for sure. Always a bit of a challenge. I don't see it here. Going live part. Oh, well. Oh, no, there it is. All right. I hope you guys can hear me. So feel free to post a little hi or something to let me know. That'd be great. And then let me see now. Let's just turn that off. Here we go. Because I wanted to share it with my people over in the holistic animal advice and raw feeding group. Feel free to join if you haven't joined already. All right, I'm gonna just do that right this second, and we are live. All about EMFs. All right, post it. Okay. Always a little bit of stuff to do. Oh, here it is. For a second there, I thought I turned off my Facebook. That would have sucked. Anyways, hi, you guys. It looks like you guys can hear me. Hi, Libby, Claudia, Kathy, Brenda, Hannah, all people I know. It's so good to see you guys all. Welcome. I'm just going to give it a few more minutes here for things to for people to show up, and then I'm going to post a few links as well for you to have for afterwards. I was planning on putting that as the first comment, but well, that didn't quite happen, but almost. Here we go. Post it. Very good. Very good. All right. Yeah, just giving a few more minutes. So if you guys wanted to share a little bit of, questions that you have about EMFs, anything that came up for you already, while we wait for a few more people to join, that'd be great. You could just post it in the comment section and I will get to those as much as possible. And then, yeah, where are you guys all tuning in from? I know obviously some of you, but I know you guys are coming from all over the place here, so that's good. That's the beauty of social media, aside from some of the other things that are going on that are maybe not as kind, but we definitely can share a lot of information, worldwide. And I encourage you to share this video with your friends and families and people you think that might be interested, because it is certainly a very important subject to go into. All right, so anyways, welcome everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Odette Suter. I'm a licensed veterinarian and I focus on holistic medicine. And you can learn all about my practice and about me either here on my Facebook page, but also on my website, which is peakanimalhealthcenter.com. And that will actually soon change to OdetteSuterDVM.com, but you'll have it'll cross-link. Anyway, so other than being with my animal friends, and at my practice and working with them and helping them heal, I also love being here and teaching people. I'm very passionate about teaching things that I've learned. And so if you guys want to learn more about all the things that I have available for teaching and the courses that I have, you can check Animal Longevity Secrets Revealed, which you can find on through my website. And then I also have a book, What Your Vet Never Told You, that goes into the very basics of what an animal really needs in order to be healthy. So that was that. And today I want to talk to you about EMFs, and EMF stands for electromagnetic fields or electromagnetic frequency. And there's another abbreviation that's used frequently as well, which is called EMR, and that's electromagnetic radiation. So I'm going to use them a little bit interchangeably as we go. So I'm going to start with a bit of a brief lecture, and then after that, I'm going to open up the floor for all of your questions because I'm sure there are a lot of them. And then, as always, for those who sign up for my newsletter, and I posted the link into the comment section, you will receive an email with a cheat sheet just to summarize the lecture and give you a bit more information as well. And yeah, so let's get started. So EMFs, it's a huge field, and there's a lot of controversy around electromagnetic radiation. Some say, well, there's no truth to it; it's just a conspiracy theory, and so on. But that couldn't be further from the truth because even the World Health Organization has, declared EMFs to be a probable carcinogen, which is kind of in the same category as smoking and glyphosate, which is Roundup, etc. So that was in 2013. So even 7 years ago, that's already been, the World Health Organization has already acknowledged that EMFs can possibly be an issue. And there have been a lot of studies done. There are a lot of people who say, oh, there's no study, there's no research, but that's actually not true. There are close to 30,000 publications, scientific publications that are out there and available for all of you guys to, read if you have time. I should probably say that when I decided to create this, dive into the subject, I was really confused myself about all these different things and gadgets and drapings and paints, and I just didn't know how I could remediate my place, to make sure that I don't have a lot of electromagnetic radiation at home. And so I decided to really dive in deep because there is a ton of information out there. And so I basically created a lecture for the American Holistic Veterinary Association annual conference that we had, and I really dug in deep. It took me about a year to get all the information together and create the lecture and, really know what I was talking about. So basically, because this is such a huge subject, there's absolutely zero chance that I will be able to give you all that information today. So we can kind of touch on some of the most important things um, about EMFs and what to pay attention to and little things to know. And I just want to kind of direct you a little bit into it, onto the path of exploration. And to make it easier, I've recorded this whole lecture that I did for the American Holistic Veterinary Conference, and it is available, today for all of you guys. It's about 3 to 4 hours of lectures, and I will be adding a little bit more information into the whole course. And I did post the course into the comment section, and I think you should be able to see it as on the live as well. It's Teachable is a a platform that allows us to provide courses. So anyways, I have the course available for $19.99. It will go up to $97 on the 21st, I think. So I just wanted to let you guys in on that, great offer because it is a very, very in-depth course. so that you can really have all the information that you need in order to create a safe space at home. Because when I was doing all that research a while ago for the conference, it really goes into all different directions, and there's so much information out there. And I don't want you to have to, dive in for like a whole year to kind of try to figure out things and understand everything. So I really condensated everything into a package that will really give you all the information that you need in a very clear and organized fashion, because it's not very organized out there on the web, at least not enough for me. Um, so anyways, feel free to kind of get that for yourself and for your friends, and listen to it and learn from it. It's really, you'll be you'll be pleased. And I'm not one that likes to kind of promote myself, so just so you know, this was really difficult to just say all that. But I also want to make sure that you guys have all that information, and I'm really passionate about people being informed, because when you're informed, you can make informed decisions. All right. So anyway, so going back to EMFs and science and such, there's a lot of industry bias when it comes to EMFs. The telecom industry, who deals with all of that and has been silently rolling out the 5G right now, now that we're all worried about COVID. It's basically a $17 trillion industry. So they have a lot of money behind them. And so there has been some research done on industry bias when it comes to EMFs, and it's actually 2.5 times worse than the bias from big pharma. So if you think that big pharma has everything controlled, well, think again. Telecom industry is even worse that way. There have also been, there's one group, the Oceania Radio Frequency Scientific Advisory Association. What they did is they took 3,000 peer-reviewed papers that were published between 2000 and 2012, and they were able to show that 61% of these studies showed biological effect of these electromagnetic frequencies. So they had an effect on the body. So anyway, so that's my little spiel on that. There is definitely an issue with EMFs, and we can't ignore it. There is proof for that. So when we talk about electromagnetic frequencies, we have to distinguish between natural ones and artificially made ones, because there are electromagnetic frequencies in the environment everywhere, through lightning, earth magnetism and radiation, static electricity that we have in the environment as well. For example, if you were to ride down a slide, on a playground, a kid's playground that's all plastic, your hair will kind of stand up straight. Or when it's, dry in the house, for example, we also have more static electricity. You try to touch a switch and you get a little jolt. Sunlight, obviously, is also a natural frequency, and then cosmic radiation. So whatever is happening, with the moon cycle, for example, and then Mercury retrograde, and all of these things affect all of our bodies. So there are definitely a lot of electromagnetic frequencies that are natural and that are helping our body, including, for example, the Schumann resonance. And the Schumann resonance is the Earth's magnetism. It basically protects, the Earth, and it's created through lightning storms. So it's between the Earth and the ionosphere. And this frequency that is created in that fashion is somewhere around 7.8 hertz, and has some overtones for those of you who are familiar with that. And this kind of frequency is really useful and necessary for the body. And there was a study done where they took people and put them in a bunker, because again, the frequency, this radiation is between the Earth and the ionosphere, so it's not in the Earth itself. So they put these people in a bunker, and in this bunker, there was none of that Schumann resonance. And what they found is that these people were really getting sick. So they had quite significant amount of health issues over time. And what they did then to reverse that is they introduced Schumann resonance or they mimicked it in that bunker, and people started to get more healthy again. So this Schumann resonance is really important for health. And for example, if we live in an area that's very dense with artificially made electromagnetic radiation, like in cities, for example, they can't even measure the Schumann resonance in the cities anymore. They have to go out into the ocean, for example, for New York City, to be able to even measure that Schumann resonance. So you can imagine that if we live in like a pool of artificially made electromagnetic frequency, that we just can't be healthy in that way. So we need to do whatever we can. And the Schumann resonance, this frequency of the earth, also is the same frequency that the brain resonates with when it's in a relaxed state. And we know nowadays that we have a lot of anxiety going on. We have a lot of depression. We have a lot of, people with panic attacks, and animals too. They are, either, we have more animals that are aggressive, that have more anxiety. So they are all affected by these electromagnetic frequencies that we are exposing them to on a daily basis in our homes, because you don't have to just live in a city to have high levels of electromagnetic radiation that is, that you're exposing your animals to. So I want to dive right into these electromagnetic radiations that we are all exposed to. But first, I want to just kind of show you a little thing, because it's important to know that we are electrical beings. So everything that's happening in the body of our animal and ourselves is based on electricity. And we can measure that electricity through the EKG, for example. We can measure the frequency of the heart that way, and the waves of the heart, and also the EEG, but everything really functions through electricity. So I have my little, very expensive $7 toy. So it basically has two electrodes on each end that are conducting, and there's some filaments inside. Oops, I don't know if you can see it well. That will show, that will kind of show some light. So let me show you. So I'm touching one side of this tube, and then I'm touching the other electrode, and you can see, for one, it makes a noise, and then you can see how there's light transmission. Okay, so that basically shows that we are electric beings. So we have electricity flowing, and you can actually attach multiple people to this. So if I hold on one side, and then I hold the hand from other people, and then we go in circles, and then the last person touches again on this side, we will still have electricity flowing. So it's not just limited to one person. We have electricity that flows through all of us through touching. And we do feel good touching our animals, right? We like to pet them. We like, we also like hugs, so all that closeness helps to kind of, it creates a cycle, basically, or a circle of energy. So we are electrical beings, and use that electricity, for the body to function properly. So when we look at electromagnetic radiation that is made artificially, there are several kinds. And most people, when they think about EMFs, they mostly think about cell phones, right? It's like the cell phone that's a problem, Wi-Fi, etc. But there are other ones. We have electric EMFs. We have EMFs means electromagnetic frequency. So we have an electric part and we have a magnetic part. So the electric part occurs as soon as we plug something in. So if you plug in a light, even if you don't turn it off, or any appliance, you will have an electric field that will radiate out. And then we also have the magnetic field, and the magnetic field gets produced when you're actually then turning on that light or that appliance. So not turning it on but plugged in is the electric field, creates an electric field because we have electrons flowing, and then the magnetic field gets created when you actually turn it on. Okay, so we always have, if we have a magnetic field, we also have an electric field always. All right, so these are the two. So we have electric field, we have magnetic field. And then we have dirty electricity, which gets produced when we have to, okay, so this kind of got a little more technical, but for those of you who are really interested, again, my course goes into really a lot of details on that because, I'm not a physics buff, and electricity kind of tends to go right above my head. So I really put it into, words and illustrations that are really easy to understand. So basically, dirty electricity is when we have, well, let me start with this. Electricity tends to be in a sine wave. So it's a wave that just is very regular and kind of goes up and down. When we have dirty electricity, we have a lot of additional frequencies that get mixed in, and it gets kind of like a bit of a jagged sort of look, which can be very, jarring to the system because, we don't have that. We don't like that kind of jarring sort of energy. So that's how dirty electricity is produced. And dirty electricity is produced through dimmer switches. So anytime we have to go from a high voltage to a lower voltage type of setting. So when you dimmer the light switch, you have you're lowering the setting of the voltage, and that creates dirty electricity. The same happens if you plug in your cell phone, for example, because we have a certain, voltage that comes in through the socket, but then it has to be toned down so that it doesn't blow up your phone. And that's why we have these, well, I don't have it with me, but you all know it, these little, you know, um, transformers that are attached to the electrical cord of your cell phone. So any time that the energy has to, or the voltage has to be toned down, it creates some dirty electricity. So basically, anytime you turn on, you plug anything in, you will end up creating some dirty electricity. And particularly bad are also smart meters. They create a lot of dirty electricity, but any appliance really will create some degree of dirty electricity that will kind of run around your electrical circuit, basically, all of your wires in the house. So we have electrical, magnetic, dirty electricity, and then we also have ground current. And so what happens is that we have ground, all the electricity that's not being used has to go back to the substation. And on the way to the substation, it should theoretically go through the earthing, the grounding wire, and go back. Not the grounding wire, one of the neutral wires, and because of the amount of electricity that we use nowadays, the wires that they have to go back to the substation are too small. So now they're actually sending that in energy, or that extra electricity, directly into the ground. And then it just kind of goes through the ground and back to the substation, because the electricity always goes back to where it came from. And so basically, because it's going through the ground is becoming electrified. So even if you're trying to ground yourself, you're possibly getting some electricity that way, because you're walking on the ground. All right, and then we also have artificial light. And then last but not least, we have microwave radiation, which are cell phones, Wi-Fi, all the cell phone antennas, your microwave oven, etc. So those are the artificial EMFs, and they all have a huge amount of effect on the body. I want to just briefly touch on that. So they can affect the mitochondria, which we know are really important, especially when it comes to trying to prevent cancerous growth, because the body's cells need a good amount of energy in order to be able to function properly. It affects cell-to-cell communication. It affects the communication between microbes in the gut of the microbiome, for example. It also affects vitamin D metabolism. It affects the brain, how it works, because if we have electromagnetic radiation that is affecting the brain and giving a different frequency, then the brain will vibrate, so to speak, at a different frequency, and that can cause all sorts of neurologic issues. So all of these EMFs have a huge effect on the body. And there was a study done on the electromagnetic radiation especially the magnetic aspect of it. There was a veterinarian in Colorado who did a study, and he measured electromagnetic radiation in the house, and particularly focused on magnetic aspect of it. And he found that all those animals that lived in a house where the magnetic radiation was really high, they had much more issues and were much more prone to developing lymphoma. And lymphoma is a tumorous kind of process that I see very often these days in animals. So we definitely need to make sure we want to remediate all of that in the house. So there's a ton of things that can be affecting the body, in very negative ways. And, even your portable cells, portable phones in the house, those are really bad. Baby monitors are awful. So everything in the house that has any sort of electricity connected to it, or any kind of frequency that is transmitted through Bluetooth, for example, all of those smart things can cause a lot of issues there. And as you can see, I'm kind of struggling here a little bit because there's so much information, and I'm trying to fit it in there, but I definitely want to make sure I can answer some of your questions as well. So let me just kind of check and see if you guys have commented any on questions here, because I want to look at that, because I want to make sure that we also touch a little bit on the protection of EMFs, because that's important as well. But you need to be aware that everything that is plugged in and has Bluetooth in any way, shape, or form will have some impact on your health, and that includes smart watches. A lot of the newer hearing aids, for example, are Bluetooth. GPS devices that can be put on animals are pretty bad as well. I had one dog that came in with or had, been wearing one of those, and her behavior had completely changed. She became aggressive and lethargic at the same time. And she also, her thyroid gland basically got fried in the process. So she wasn't able to produce thyroid hormones anymore. So that was pretty bad. She did recover quite well after the cause was found and the collar was removed. Although the thyroid gland never recovered, we had to keep her on thyroid medication. But her behavior came back to more normal. So all of these things can cause a lot of issues for our animals, and they're constantly in those. So I want to make sure that I touch a little bit on the remediation. But the first thing when you're actually trying to create a safer space for your animals is that you have to measure what's going on, because you don't know unless you do. In my home, I always thought that, well, I probably have a good bit of electromagnetic radiation going on because, well, my neighbors have Wi-Fi, and we live in a world where there's a lot of electromagnetic radiation. But to my surprise, when I measured it, I found that I did not actually have a lot of electromagnetic radiation. So I didn't really have to do a whole lot. I don't have Wi-Fi. I use Ethernet. So I'm connected directly. So I was able to eliminate that. But basically, in your homes, you're going to have to measure what's going on so that you can properly remediate, what's present in your home, because it may be different for everybody. So to measure, I do have some devices that I like. This one here tests for electromagnetic radiation, so cell phones, Wi-Fi, and so on. And I think I put those into my notes for afterwards, so you don't have to worry about that. And then I use the tri-field here for electric and magnetic fields, although it does also check microwave radiation, but it's not very accurate that way. And then for dirty electricity, there are different types. I have this one from Green Wave, so you plug it into the socket and then you can measure, it measures the amount of dirty electricity that you have. So you definitely want to measure things before you do anything, because otherwise you don't really know what you're dealing with. You don't want to just randomly start remediation. And then you also want to measure again afterwards. Because, for example, if you have a room and you remediate, by painting, because there's paint that you can put on the walls that helps to shield. So if you were to paint, 3 walls of the room, but you have windows on one side, and you're not shielding that window, but you happen to have a cell phone antenna right in front of that window, what would happen is the electromagnetic radiation would come in, and then because you have all the walls shielded, it would just kind of bounce around, which would make it worse. So the same is true, for example, when you're in your car. So when you're in your car and you have your cell phone on, it can't go anywhere because you're in a bit of a Faraday cage. So the electromagnetic radiation will kind of bounce around in your car. So you have to make sure that you really measure again after, because you don't want to remediate and then have it be worse afterwards, because that would make you more sick possibly, and your animals. So you want to definitely make sure that you measure again afterwards. Um, and then with any kind of electromagnetic radiation, the best way is always distance. So you want to create distance between whatever you're exposed to and yourself. So, for example, just putting your cell phone about 3 feet away, so but arm's length away, will also already decrease the amount of electromagnetic radiation that you will be exposed to significantly. But of course, would be even better to put it on airplane mode and only use as needed. So again, distance is your friend, but the best way to do it is to just not have it at all and shield. Um, so for shielding, there's all sorts of things that you can do. As I mentioned, you can shield the walls with paint, um, and then you can cover it up because the paint itself is black. And then there's also shields that you can have for the windows. But definitely the best way would be to just not even have the electromagnetic radiation. So get away from Wi-Fi, get, plugged in again. We're going to have better connection anyway if you're wired. Um, Turn off your phone at night. Don't leave it next to your nightstand. When you're with your, animals, also make sure that they're not having their beds sitting right next to your Wi-Fi um, devices. Make sure you still get appliances that aren't smart, because those are, very difficult. Turn off your computers. Put your computer on airplane mode, and I want to just show you briefly here. So this is basically my home right now, and you can see that it's on green, which is very low. So I'm going to turn off airplane mode on my computer right now. See how it just jumped up incredibly. Okay, now I'm going to turn it off again, and it goes down. So make sure you turn that off. And for example, on your iPads, you actually have to turn off the entire iPad so that it actually stops, pulsing, because it will still pulse even if it's just you know, shut down, or like on standby. It will still have some radiation going. So you just have to be really careful on, you want to make sure you get away from it, you remove it as much as possible, and then remediate. There's a lot that can be done for dirty electricity as well that you can install. You can also turn off the electricity at night, turn off the breaker. For example, unplug things that will also decrease the electric field. Definitely don't have um, like a portable phone right next to your bed. Those are really bad, or next to your animals' beds. Um, so there are a lot of things that you can do to help with remediation, and I go into a lot of depth into my course on that, so that you really know what to do. One other thing that I do want to mention when it comes to remediation, because I hear a lot of people saying that we can just use little pendants and little, you know, crystals and things like that, and then we're all safe and everything. And I do have one right here that's I bought at one point. I've never really used it. But the problem with these is that they may just make your body feel better. Okay, so they may just help to energize your body and make it feel better and make your animals feel better, but they do not protect from anything. So I'm going to show you. Okay, so I have this little thing here. I'm just going to, actually, it has a sticky thing. I'm going to just stick it to my shirt right here. And then I'm going to turn on the my safe and sound again. Put it on this side. And then I'm going to put it right here. Okay, so it's still all green. And I have the sound on, so you don't hear anything right now because there's no sound when it's in the safe zone. So I'm just going to turn back on the, turn off the airplane mode again. And you can hear how it sounds really loudly. So this little thing here does not protect me from radiation from the, okay? So it is really a bit of a myth that these little things here will protect you. They make you feel better. So if you're in an environment where your animals can't get away from it, you can certainly put one of these, on, or any variation of these little pendants and such on them to help them feel better. And maybe they won't have quite as much issues with the electromagnetic radiation that's present in the environment, but they will not protect. And there was actually a study done with two chicken coops. So they had one chicken coop where they put some sort of a device in there that was supposed to kind of, take care and protect a little bit, similar to this thing. And then they had another chicken coop that didn't get one of those. And both of these chickens coops were exposed to electromagnetic radiation. And the ones that were in the chicken coop that had that little protecting device, they were actually staying closer to the source of the electromagnetic radiation, and they were laying a lot more eggs than the ones that were in the other chicken coop without the protection. So in the second chicken coop without the protection, the chickens were staying away from the electromagnetic radiation source, and they were, as a result, less exposed. So yes, they may not have felt quite as well, because they could feel the electromagnetic radiation, so they were just taking, a step away. But the difference was that the ones that did not have the protection, they actually lived twice as long as the ones that had the protection. So that just shows you that it would be a fallacy to think that just because you have one of these little things here on you, that you can keep your cell phone on your head 24/7 without getting sick or without, having some impact. So I personally am not a huge fan of these little things. Again, if you work in an environment or are somewhere where you can't get away from it, that can certainly be helpful to help your body feel a little bit better. But the goal is always to get rid of the electromagnetic radiation as much as possible, at least for a few hours a day. You should definitely be able to get away from that, and especially your animals as well. You want to make sure that they don't get exposed, constantly. If you're leaving your home, there is no need to have Wi-Fi running. There's no need to have your smart TV going. Turn off Alexa or any of these, smart devices. There's no need to have those. Your animals really don't need those. So when you're not home, make sure that they're somewhat disabled, and so that they can have some peace. Because electromagnetic radiation is very, very challenging for the body. For example, if we irradiate mold in the house, um, they actually start to producing, and I can't remember how much more of these mold toxins that are much more virulent. Let me see. I do have my lecture slide open because I can't remember it all. Here we go. So they found that they produce 600 times more mycotoxins a day. If mold, if you have mold in your house, for example, you're going to have a lot more mycotoxins produced during the day if you have Wi-Fi and high levels of general electromagnetic radiation. And these mycotoxins are also much more toxic on top of that. So another reason to decrease that, because then you and your animals will be more affected by whatever mold may be around. And there are some doctors out there now that don't even accept new clients or patients if they're not willing to deal with the electromagnetic radiation, because it can make or break any sort of treatment process, treatment plan. So for the animals that I see, I always highly recommend that people turn off Wi-Fi, that they don't walk around with like these smart watches while they're, petting their animals. I mean, best to really get rid of these things anyways, because if you keep weakening the system with something while you're trying to heal it, that it just doesn't work very well. Okay, so it can really make or break the process and the healing. So very important to get away from that. All right, so let me just get into a little bit of questions here. So Gail, I lost a kitty that was 5 years old to lymphoma. My 5-year-old dog, hyperthyroid. My son, IT guy, we have Wi-Fi. Okay, I'm not quite sure. We have Wi-Fi, smart meter, smart gas meter, etc. Should we be afraid to have more pets? Well, I don't think you should be afraid to have more pets, but you can do a lot of things to remediate that. So if you have an IT guy, a son who's an IT guy, you can have him, change your whole Wi-Fi and remove Wi-Fi and get everything wired, because it can be done. You can plug in any computer, any device to an Ethernet cable. Some of them will just have to have a little adapter, because not all computers, like mine for example, doesn't have an Ethernet port. So I just had to buy an adapter that works for the USB port. And then my modem doesn't have Wi-Fi ability even. So there are a lot of things that can be done, and these Ethernet cables, they can be routed through any electrical socket. It's not, it shouldn't cost a ton of money to do that, but it can make a huge difference. And then with smart meters, there's also ways to shield those a little bit. Smart gas meter, same thing. If you can have your meters changed, there's a lot of, I have some information in the course as well on how to, on some resources on how to get the electrical company to go back to a regular meter, um, because there's quite the movement out there that is working towards changing things to be better. So I don't think you should be afraid to have more pets. You just need to make sure that your space is safe, for yourself as well, because the thing is, you want your pets to live a long life, but you too need to live a long life, and you need to be healthy, because otherwise you can't really take care of your animals. Because the sad thing nowadays is that there are so many people who have significant health issues, and that makes it really difficult for the animals, because it's a financial strain, it's an emotional strain on everybody. The animals pick up when you're not feeling well, they pick up on that. And then if you have to take care of yourself and your animals, and you're all sick and you can't work, it's like, I mean, you get the gist, right? So best thing is to really make sure that you can kind of remediate that. And Shawnee, they start running 5G in Israel. How can I minimize the damage to my dogs? I don't have Wi-Fi. Um, yeah, 5G unfortunately is coming in the US as well, and has been started for sure in the cities. Um, to minimize the damage, well, for one, you'd have to find out whether you have 5G in your area, next to your house, because for 5G, they have to put a lot of little antennas everywhere, because the range of these antennas is not very far. So they have to put them up on pretty much every light pole. So if you don't see any 5G antennas right, close to you, you probably don't have that issue. And you know, obviously if you get out of the house and go into an area where there is more 5G, then that would be more of an issue. So I recommend, going into, I don't know if you have forests, probably, I'm not sure, but, go out in nature where there's no 5G, as much of it anyway, so that you can get away with it when you're exercising your animals. Um, Same with 5G, you just want to remediate the house so that you have shielding. For 5G, unfortunately, last I checked, there are no devices yet that are picking up on 5G frequency, because these devices here that measure, they have a frequency range that they measure. And 5G, because it's a new frequency range, they're still working on creating these measuring devices, and they're still kind of trying, waiting to see what all the frequencies they're going to be using, so that they can actually build a device that can measure all of these, frequencies. So the measuring for 5G is still a little bit behind in that regard. Cindy, you asked about PEMF devices. PEMF stands for pulsed electromagnetic frequencies, and those actually use frequencies that the body likes. So again, if we go back to the Schumann resonance, which is the earth frequency, that is helpful for the body. The body likes that. So with PEMF devices, it's also a frequency that the body likes. So it can be helpful. So it always depends on, what the frequency is. If it's a frequency around 7 to 8 hertz, that's something that the body really likes. If it goes into the very high frequencies, that's when the body has an issue with. So it very much depends on the kind of frequency that is being used. Kim Beck, can zeolite and other metal detox products help the body to eliminate the EMFs in the body if used regularly? Well, the zeolites and metal detoxes are actually not really to help eliminate EMFs in the body in that sense. Well, basically what happens if your animal's body is loaded with toxins, especially heavy metals and metals in general, what happens is these metals, they act like a little antenna. So because they will have a lot of little antennas in their bodies, what happens is the electromagnetic radiation will come in more, so they will be more affected by the EMFs. So basically using zeolites and metal detox will basically eliminate the antennas, so that there's not all these little receivers in the body, these receivers for EMFs. So that's how the detoxification would work. But you still have to get away from the, electromagnetic radiation. Just because you're doing detox and zeolites doesn't mean that you're going to be protected. But the truth is that the healthier a body is, the better it will be able to deal with the electromagnetic radiation that is present in the environment. But even if an animal is really healthy, still don't expose them to it, because electromagnetic radiation, the effect of it is cumulative. So just because I haven't had the cell phone on my ear for like 2 minutes doesn't mean that the electromagnetic radiation is gone and there's no issue. That's not how it works. It's cumulative, because it creates damage, and then that damage needs to be repaired. So if you continuously cause more damage with exposure, then that becomes cumulative over time, and then the body can't restore itself. So for example, with people, and I don't know if there are animals that are electrosensitive, but people who are electrohypersensitive, they usually are fine. They start out fine, and then as they get more sick, they they get to a point where they can't even tolerate being in, anywhere close to electromagnetic radiation, and they basically have to move, or there are people who basically live in one room that's super shielded, and they can't go anywhere because it makes them so sick. And so one of the things that does help with dealing with electromagnetic radiation is to promote health of the body through good nutrition, through regular detox, through making sure the microbiome of the gut is healthy, through hormone health, through exercise. All of these things are really, really important in order to, deal with electromagnetic radiation, and that goes for animals and for us humans, of course. So aside from the shielding, that's one thing that you can do is to help them deal with it much better. And Calista, thoughts on grounding mats? That's a very good question. So the grounding mats, they can be an issue. Again, just like with these little, gadgets here that you can attach to yourself or your animals to help them feel better. The same is true with the grounding mats. If you feel a difference and it makes you feel better, by all means use it. If you don't feel better, you don't, or feel worse, then don't use it. Because the problem with the grounding mats is that if you're grounding the mat, you have to plug it in into your socket so that it gets to, gets grounded. For one, you have to have good grounding in your house. But if, for example, you have a lot of ground current in your area, where you live, then basically that ground current can come back up the little wire that's attached to the grounding mat. So then you could actually end up with more energy in the grounding mat, same with the grounding sheets, that you can use on beds, for example. So it can actually make it worse. So again, if it makes you feel better, use it. If it makes you feel worse, obviously don't. If you don't notice any difference, I probably would stay away from it. I used to have them, didn't ever, notice any difference, so I stopped using it after, I did more of that research. And with grounding mats too, they have these little filaments of I think it's copper or silver, I can't remember now. But in any ways, that's how the electricity would kind of, be taken from you and then grounded into the ground. So it goes through a little bit of that metal. So these little metal filaments that are in the sheets, for example, they actually can also act like an antenna. So they can pick up ambient electromagnetic radiation. So it can make it worse. So then you may actually be sitting or laying down on an antenna, or your animals may be laying on an antenna. So yeah, I guess it depends, on how you feel in regards to that. Um, Gail, how do you feel about stuff they're spraying in air and metals in vaccines? Well, all of these things add, to the toxic load of the body. There's a lot of aluminum that comes with the air these days with all the spraying that they're doing, with, trying to modify the weather and the climate. Obviously, the metals in the vaccines are an issue as well, because they go everywhere, so they need to be removed safely. But have to make sure that the animals are getting everything that they need, food wise and such, so that they're stable. Because I do hear a lot about detox reactions from animals, and they shouldn't be going through detox a whole year. And have symptoms for a whole year. That's not a good detox. So definitely have to do it safely. Again, protecting the body, giving it the nutrients that it needs in order to be able to detox safely. There are different kinds of herbs and things like that can also help protect the body. For example, propolis is good for the brain and helps to protect us. And then, yes, Gail, it seems we are all doomed and our pets are all doomed. Yes, it does certainly seem that way. And, this all can be really scary, but as much as I try to stay away from electromagnetic radiation, there's no way that we can stay away from it completely. And to be honest with you, we don't really know everything as humans. We actually know very little about anything. So who knows if that electromagnetic radiation that we're exposed to is on some level helping to change our DNA, our frequency, in the grand scheme of things. Because right now, as humans, as a humankind and animals as well, we kind of vibrate maybe at a frequency that could be elevated and could bring more of joy and love and acceptance and respect and unconditional love and that sort of thing. Because when we kind of look around right now, things are up. With COVID-19, everything is going a little crazy. People are being, are everybody's fear is triggered. People have to change because things are a little out of control and they can't continue doing things the way they're always doing it. So stuff is up. So with electromagnetic radiation, who knows? Maybe there is something that's happening that we as humans just can't figure out right now, and can't see, beyond that. But maybe in 100 years or so, maybe we'll know that, oh my God, it really turned on our brains to actually work more efficiently and access more knowledge that we're not currently able to access, because I believe it's like we use what, 10% of our brains or something like that. And I certainly would like to have access to the other 90%. And same with the DNA, we only know some of it, and not all the DNA is turned on at this point. So who knows what this all is doing. So I certainly do not want to leave you with a doomsday message here. We just don't know everything, but we have to maybe do a little bit of everything in moderation. Maybe a little bit of exposure is okay, but just don't sit in sit in it for 24 hours a day. So be smart. It's kind of like, a little bit of chocolate is a good thing, but you can't live off of it, right? So everything in moderation. Same with electromagnetic radiation. So supporting the body to be healthy and to function well and get all the nutrients that it needs in order to be able to deal with whatever we're exposed to is really important. So yeah. Any other questions that you guys have? Um, yeah, I do. Okay, a detox lecture. We can certainly do that at some point, Kim. For sure. I do have a whole detox lecture as part of my video series as well. So if you don't want to wait, you can certainly go and dive in to that. And then just wanted to remind you again, please share this with your friends and family so that they can also get a little bit more clean energy around themselves and around their animals so that they can live a happy and long and healthy life. So make sure to share it. And thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your Sunday to sit here and listen to it. I hope I didn't fry too many brains, but for more learning, please check out the course. It really goes into more depth so that you have all the information that you need in a condensed version and easy to understand. So anyways, I'm going to leave you with that. If you want to get the cliff notes for this and a little bit more information on it as well, so you can sign up for the newsletter. It's in one of the first comments um, in this live, and I will post all the links again just so you have them so that they're easier to find when we're done here. And yeah, again, it was so good to see you guys all. Thank you so much for joining in, and thanks for your interest, and thank you for helping your animals and keeping them healthy and spreading the word, because it's really you guys who are doing the work. I'm just putting out the information, but you guys are doing the work. You're taking it places. So thanks so much for that. Love you guys all. Have a wonderful rest of the Sunday, and I will see you at one of my next Facebook lives. Haven't planned it yet, so any suggestions for subjects are always welcome. Whatever things that you guys want to know. All right, you guys take care. Bye.